Welcome back to the table. Today, Emily and I are going to give you a look at Tiny Epic Cthulhu. Yes, it's happened. Tiny Epic and Cthulhu
all together
have come together. I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened before now. But this is a co-op Tiny Epic game. I can't remember off the top of my head if there's been any co-ops in the past. But this one is a co-op, and there are a lot of plates that are spinning. And speaking of spinning, you are actually spinning.
Literally spinning.
A thing. It's going to bring back the memories of old
all
board
the little
games.
spinners.
But it actually works really well to serve what's happening in this game. But it is a Cthulhu-based game. We are playing investigators or various characters, and we're trying to ultimately seal the portals so the great old one doesn't
come out and wreck the world.
I mean, to be fair, the great old one is out on the board most of the game, but you're trying to stop the portals. But before you have to do that, what do you have to do?
You have to get 25 pages
of the Necronomicon.
I know how to say that word.
Necronomicon. In fact, there's a lot of words in the Cthulhu mythos that are hard to say.
There are.
In fact, speaking of which, we didn't face Cthulhu itself. We went against Nyarlathotep? Yes. Nyarlathotep. That's one that I was not familiar with, but they recommend that this is the one you start with. Yes. We were all on board for starting with the easier one. But what are you doing in this game? Well, you're going to build this board that's created of all these town sections with the spinner right here in the middle. Now, in our prototype, and it should be said that this is a prototype here on the board, there's a lot of components here that are going to be very different based on the pictures in the rule book. Yes. We're just using a lot of wooden cubes and meeples. But I think there's going to be more of these town sectors, too, that come out, and you randomly pull those out, put them around the spinner board. Then you're going to be spending the game moving around that, trying to collect madness, because like any good Cthulhu game, madness,
go a little bit mad.
It's a double-edged sword. You want some madness because it's going to help you be a little bit more powerful, but it's also, if you get too mad, it's not good.
Yeah, all of these cubes that you see won't be actual cubes. They'll be little tentacles, right? So they're going to be madness tentacles or eldritch tentacles that are going to make the Great One's strength go up. And we can collect some of these tentacles to temporarily use them to be better at movement or better at taking things or better at even moving tentacles around where we need them.
Yes.
But if we get too many of them, we're going to go up on the delirium track. And with that madness, like you said, it's going to give us a little bit more power. We're going to be able to kind of do some rerolls and fun stuff. But if we get too high, we will go mad. And if anyone around the table goes mad, we will automatically lose.
Yes, and that can happen. And madness tentacles aren't the only bad things. There are even worse things, and those are the shamblers. There are shamblers that are going to be out in some of these areas, too. This game is built around a lot of tracks. There's going to be shamblers in their own little track in each of these towns. There's going to be madness of each type on its own little track in each of these little town sections. And as these tracks go up and sort of fire off at the end, they're going to have repercussions where it might fire off another track or make something else go up. All of which is bad.
Yes. You don't want anything to be accursed. Accursed is when you would put something but you can't, and then that means bad things are happening. Tentacles are relocating to different spots, consequences are happening across the board, bad things are happening.
And why are we moving around the town? Well, at first, in the first phase of the game, you're collecting those pages of the Necronomicon. As you can see here, we have these pages in each of these sections. Now, this is our end game state. And yes, we did actually happen to win. But at the beginning of the game, all these pages are going to be face down, and they are typically going to be face down. You have to actually move to a sector and actually flip that page face up. What you're going to see on this page is the madness tentacles that you're going to have to discard from your player mat in order to collect that page if you're in this sector. Once you collect this page, it actually has kind of a cool effect because there's some numbers here that relate to the Necronomicon board that we have filled right now at the moment.
Because you need to.
Yes.
You need to find all the pages.
But at the beginning of the game, none of those cubes are on there, and in fact, there's going to be a lot of the chaos tentacles around the outside edge. As you fill them, those cubes are going to fill the leftmost space of these numbered rows. And whenever you get a full row or a full column, you're going to remove one of those purple chaos tentacles and bring it over to the discard mat, which is going to then potentially, eventually, go into the bag where we're drawing tentacles from. And those are good for us. We want those.
Yeah, there's a lot of balance in this game about, like, you're usually thinking, like, putting chaos in or putting more tentacles in seems like a bad thing.
Sounds bad.
But it's good, because what we really want to happen is we want to fill that bag with as many tentacles as we can, because tentacles are going to come out. No matter what happens, tentacles will keep coming out.
But not eldritch tentacles.
But not eldritch tentacles, because once those come out, as soon as there are 3, and we start with only 3 possible,
yes.
We ended with way more than 3 in the bag,
yes.
For various reasons. Once 3 come out, his strength is going to go up and keep going up and up. And that means we're going to not only just draw more each time, but also if he gets all the way to the end of his track, we also lose.
And that thing can go up. At first, it doesn't go up too often because there's not a lot of black eldritch cubes or tentacles in the bag at first. But what we found as you play, if you're not doing all the things like a lot of co-ops do, we were doing some of the things. The one thing I think that we could have done better on is the shamblers, because one of the things you can do is kind of
banish them away.
Banish those shamblers. And when you do, it's going to force some of the cubes that have been in the game back into the game,
yes,
and into the bag, and then therefore out into these sectors. Because when those cubes are on this mat right here, it just means there's more black cubes in this bag.
And less of anything else.
And less of anything else. And at the end of the game, we were drawing, I would say...
Black, okay, another black.
Yeah, 2/3 of the cube, so it was really pushing that up. So let's talk really quick. We don't want to give you a how to play, but I do want to talk to you about what you do on your turn. And what you do on your turn, it doesn't really matter between the first phase and the second phase. The second phase just allows you to do a different thing than you can in the first phase. But on your turn, you're always going to start by spinning the wheel, of course.
There you go.
Every single turn starts this way. And once the wheel starts, it's going to do a couple different things. First, you look at the pointer end and execute the action. And on that spinning wheel, there's a number of different icons that do a number of different things.
A lot of it's moving tentacles around to different places, potentially getting some more chaos tentacles, which can be good for us, or doing the powers of the Great Old One, depending on where it lands and depending on where he moves around, which can do way more stuff with the tentacles too.
Right, and once you resolve whatever that action is on the pointer end, you're going to take the tentacle bag and you're going to draw X number of tentacles based on the strength of the old one. You're going to pull those out. You're going to place those in the town sector where it's pointing at. Hopefully, it doesn't
go accursed
in any of these. So if I have 3 blue and I draw a 4th blue or a 4th red or a 4th green, it's going to basically take those back over here. Bad things are going to happen. Not to mention, probably the worst thing, and you don't notice this at first, you can't collect those.
Yes.
And you want to be able to go to those sections and collect them. But you're going to draw those and put them out wherever they may go. Eldritch cubes or tentacles are going to go on the old one. The chaos ones are actually going to be good because that's the only time you're going to draw and put them on your board. Those are effectively wild, so that when you're going to ultimately spend tentacles, the purple ones can be spent as any other color.
Plus, they can also be spent to give you an extra action as well. So usually
that's true.
You'll have 3 actions you can do, but those chaos tentacles can give you a little bit more. So that's just the pointer end, though, of the spinner. Then you do the second half of the spinner. So you look at the tail, and it's going to tell you every single time a shamble is going to come out.
Yeah.
And so this is going to tell you which color is going to come out. It's going to come out in this section. And then the Great Old One, he loves to watch. So he comes over to where they're at. In the first half of the game in phase 1, we can't go through him. We don't want to be by him. So if we are stuck with him, we're going to try to move out. In the second half of the game, we want to go towards him because we're trying to seal him away. So we're going to be like moving around the board to try to always be next to him.
Yeah, and once you've resolved the spinner, once you've pulled the tentacles from the bag and the other end of the spinner, then and only then can you actually take the actions on your turn. And on your turn, player has 3 actions to take and a few different options. Again, we'll summarize these. You're going to move. You can move to an adjacent space. However, a lot of the tentacles you collect, like we said earlier, are going to strengthen things you do.
Yeah.
The more blue tentacles you have on your player mat, the further you can move with a single move action. Likewise, the more green tentacles you have serve another action because you can collect some of these tentacles, and when you have more green tentacles on your board, you can take more of those tentacles. And lastly, the red tentacles, when you have a lot of those, when you banish those shamblers, you're able to actually get more of the cubes back from them if your rage is high.
Yes. Plus, it makes it easier to actually banish them.
Yes.
Because the highest one that you'll need is going to be those red tentacles. The last thing we can do, though, in the first half is that we can try to actually get those pages of the Necronomicon.
Hey, she did
it. So we'll actually take it, we'd get to put it next to us, and we'd get to start putting those pages out. Once we have all 25, we get to flip over, second phase of the game, and we actually have to start sealing him away now that we know how to do it.
Yes, the sealing away, this is where the dice come in. Now, the dice do come in the first half too, and in the second half. When you're trying to banish those shamblers, you're going to be rolling some dice. But sealing the portals is all about rolling the dice. Now, with that said, it's not just complete random, like you're going to roll dice and, oh, I didn't or I did. I mean, that is kind of what will happen. But you have some chances with the cards you've collected, those pages of the Necronomicon. For instance, I have in my player area 3 green, 1 red, and 1 blue. What that means is it's the number of dice I'm going to be able to roll when I'm trying to seal these portals. You can see here on the Great Old One, and we're actually flipped it over. There's 2 blue, 2 red, and 2 green portals. And this is the easy one, so you have to just roll
the easiest one.
A 1 or a 2. But when you're in the space with the Great Old One, you can actually say, I'm going to try to close the number 2 blue portal. And when you do that, you're going to have a blue tentacle on your mat. And then you're going to look at the strength based on those cards and roll that number of dice, as long as I got a 2 or higher, and that's combining all the numbers I rolled.
And remember, the dice have 0 through 2.
Yes.
So they're
they're not 6-sided dice.
Yeah.
It's
well,
0.
they are 6-sided, but they only have 0, 1, or 2.
True. not a standard 6-sided. But when you roll that, you're able to take that tentacle then and place it and seal that portal.
Yeah.
I will say, one of the big differences between the first phase and the second phase, of course, aside from the mechanics of it, is once we thought we were going to lose for sure.
We were so close to losing.
Like towards the end, we were like
We were literally 1 away.
1 away from losing. Then we finally collected that last page of the Necronomicon. It flipped. His strength resets, so you have a little bit of breathing room. But like I said, if you haven't done your job managing the shamblers, managing the number of black cubes, and honestly, at that point, necessarily, there's going to be probably a fair amount of black cubes in there, just based on how many times the Great Old One has strength has gone up. You're going to see the strength quickly go up a lot more in the second round. But with that said, the closing of the portals based on the pages that you have is a little easier to do. Now, that may vary in player count a little bit, though.
It felt like the second half was like paying off from what we did the first half. Well, did you do enough or did you not do enough? Because it's either going to be really hard or pretty manageable, depending on how well we did.
Yeah, so that is Tiny Epic Cthulhu. I would say, as co-op games go, it's an interesting mix with those 2 phases. It, like many co-ops, has a ton of, like I said earlier, spinning plates. I would say this feels even more like it has a variety of different things that you're having to keep track of and do. It's very process-oriented. Yeah. You don't want to miss any steps along the way. But there's a lot of variable experiences that I think you'll be able to have with this game. One thing we didn't mention, the towns all have different, or the town sectors all have different powers that you can use. It's one of the actions you can take is using the town action. For instance, this one says, spend 1 purple tentacle to clear the Great One energy track. So if he's about to fire off, you can get those black cubes back off of him. Now, they do go back in the bag, unfortunately.
Right, so you can pull them again.
But you're delaying the inevitable, but you're still delaying it. So all of the towns have that, and all of the player characters have powers as well.
Yeah, so we could choose different players too, right? We chose these 2. You were the doctor and I was the investigator, but there are multiple to choose from, as well as the fact that, so like we said, we did the easiest difficulty, which they recommend, but there are also other difficulty levels and other great ones we could have chosen, and they have some variations for how to make the game even more difficult by adding a few more tentacles to start with, if you're really feeling like, I got this.
I would say, like we said, we beat it, but I would say we just barely beat it. There is a point where I feel like I want to play it again to see if when you get over that hump, it still always has that breathing room, or if it could get to the point where you get over that hump and it's going to be
very, very tense.
Very, very in your face. There is a lot of variety. There's extra, and we just have some of them, so there's probably going to be more in the campaign. And in fact, if you have any more questions about the game or the campaign, head over to their page and check that out. or get down in the comments below and ask us whatever we can try to answer for you. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.